We got a blackboard today. Think of that, how much fun this is going to be. All right. If you could bear with me, I'm going to rely on our blackboard a little bit today. Start out. But I want to first of all say thank you to everyone for being here today. This is another exciting day for West Virginia, an all-star team that's going to help West Virginia tackle all the many challenges in front of us, and we're going to win. I talked a lot over the last few years how important it is to win in real, concrete terms. That's what the team we're assembling is going to do. So I can mention to everyone here that we've been working around the clock over the last few weeks. We're doing a lot of work on the budget. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget today. I appreciate your patience, because some of the things we're going to talk about, I'm going to provide some information, but as I said to you, we may not know all things at all times, but we're going to try to get as much information to you as possible along the way. Many of you know that on February 12th, we have the State of the State, and I plan to submit a budget that day, consistent with law and tradition, and that will outline a lot of the answers to the questions that you may be asking today. But very importantly, we have very exciting news in terms of our new appointments. When I decided to run for governor, I knew it was really important to find incredible talent from West Virginia and all parts of the country. And consistent with how we ran our AG's office, I like to bring ringers in, people who are excellent at what they do. I think we're finding that. You see that in the governor's office and the talent that we're talking about. You're going to keep seeing it in the cabinet post. Today we conclude the announcements, the immediate announcements for the cabinet with the following picks and also another change within one of the departments. We'll start out with the Adjutant General. General Crane will be retiring, and I'm very pleased to announce that Jim Seward, who's a brigadier general in the National Guard, served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and the border of Germany. He's going to be coming in to be the TAG. The coming on Thursday. He is the director of the Veterans Justice Commission, only in the military, but he also served in state government in the past. So he brings that to bear, which is incredibly important. He was actually the general counsel in South Dakota back from 2010 to 2016, managing more than 8,000 employees. Has a lot of great management chops, and he's really incredibly bright. I think the citizens of West Virginia are going to really love this pick. He's really incredible. So I can't say enough good things about him. Jim Seward. We also are naming a new Secretary of Veterans Assistance, Ryan Kennedy. Ryan Kennedy is a friend. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army, where he served as a chemical officer. He's practiced law for about 20 years, including 13 years with the law firm Robinson & McElwee in Clarksburg. Since the end of his military service, Mr. Kennedy spent countless hours helping veterans through a variety of charitable endeavors and service projects. He's married to his wife, Laura. They have many children. He's incredibly talented. I'm looking forward to having you get to know Ryan Kennedy. He'll be starting in the next few weeks. He is just outstanding. Another change we're announcing is that we will have a new superintendent of state police. His name will be Jim Mitchell. Jim brings incredible amounts of experience to the position, over 32 years of law enforcement experience. He's been a chief of staff at the state police, and he also serves his community as a senior pastor of Present Grace Baptist Church, Fayetteville. I'm really pleased about Jim Mitchell, and I want to take the opportunity also to thank everyone who served our state. Public service is an honorable activity, and I'm grateful for everyone for what came beforehand. We also have a number of staff hires that we want to mention today. We'll start with our scheduler, Amanda Feller. She's terrific. She has more than 20 years of communications, marketing, government relations experience. She joins the team. She was previously at West Virginia State University for nearly 8 years as the executive communications liaison to the president. Prior to that, she worked at WOWK and interned at CNN. We're hiring in spite of that. That was meant to be a joke, guys. Then we have a special assistant to the governor, Chris Stavroulakis. Chris is terrific. Chris worked with us on the campaign, and he's getting good experience in his new job. I will tell you, I'm very pleased with Chris. You're doing an outstanding job, and I'm grateful. We're all going to work very hard together. Chris was born and raised in West Virginia, and parents, great story, came to the United States in the early 1990s as immigrants. I love that. We get more people coming into West Virginia. Chris attended at WVU. Let's welcome Chris as a special assistant. We also have wonderful people who help greet West Virginians every single day. I want to make sure I thank the people that you first talk to on the phone when you call into the governor's office or meet when you come in to see us. Two people, Angela Freiberg. Angela worked with me in the Attorney General's office. She's done a wonderful job over there. I think you're going to like her. She's also very active in her community. And then I feel like we have an incredible gem also in Dana Price, who previously worked in the governor's office in this position. And Dana, you're doing a great job. So thank you. I think it's important, are always customer service oriented with the public so that people know we're working hard every single day. And that's going to be our trademark. We're going to outwork people. That's how we're going to get really big things done. All right. Now we move to another topic, which I think folks have been waiting. Now, about a week and a half ago, I came to you and I mentioned that there were some very significant budget challenges. I conveyed that to you and said we're going to be able to get through those budget challenges to the other side. But we've been learning a lot more over the last few weeks, and I'd like to provide even greater detail to you about what we're finding. I think, as you'll see on February 12th, when we provide the formal budget, we are providing facts to people, to the public. These are not going to be disputable pieces of information. But we're meeting with all of our cabinet secretaries to discuss the budget. Yesterday, we spent most of the day doing that, going line by line. And this is the first time I think you've seen that level of activity in a while. We want to learn more, and we are learning more every single day. And with that, I said I wanted to be transparent about the budget and what we're finding, and in fact, we're going to do that. Now, I mentioned to you that we had some challenges, and I want to provide you with a little bit more specifics about what they are and have a better sense that these are real numbers and there's something that we have to deal with. But I want to emphasize two things. Number one, these are all things we've inherited. This is the state of affairs as of January 14th. Just recently, we came in. That's where we've inherited these issues. We're going to fix them. I want to look the West Virginians in the eye and tell them we're going to solve these problems. We're going to overcome our challenges. We are going to be that shining state in the mountains. But we're going to have to change how we do things. We can't rob Peter to pay Paul and push all the bills to future generations. We can't do that anymore. And that's a lot of what we're seeing. We're going to be able to address things very, very differently. Let me point out where we are today. All right. We're going to start with a couple of different facts. I want to make sure that we're getting this all to the 26th. To those who may goes to June 30th, 2026. When there's a specific problem for this year, I'm going to be really clear to say this is a problem for this year leading up to June 30th, if that makes sense. We're going to start with Medicaid. When people wonder, well, where do the numbers come from? Let's start with this. $153 million for Medicaid. I mentioned that a few weeks ago. But that shortfall is being funded by one-shot money. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, you can certainly utilize one-shot money. We're going to have to utilize some because we can't fix all the structural problems of the deficit overnight. But if you only rely on one-shot money, let's say you say, well, there's 1.5 or 2 billion left you can put. If that's one-shot money, if you keep just paying the bills through one-shot money, what happens? You run out of one-shot money, and you're still left with the big deficit. There's a reason you have a rainy day program. You have a rainy day program because you're trying to prepare for an emergency, not to pay the base bills. That's not what my intent to do. I'm not planning to use the emergency fund We're going to make the tough decisions, the correct decisions, to put the people first, to put the next generation of West Virginians first. That's $153 million. That's one-shot money. Okay? Let's move on. This is for this year. This is 25. I have learned in our meetings that we have approximately $47 million that might be required under the law to help corrections and Homeland operate through the end of June. So let me say, this is for this year, very specifically. We know that a lot of the salaries, the medical care, the expenses are set to expire in March, intentionally done, so that there would be a need to come back to the legislature to be able to, it stops in March. We have to work to find a solution to that. And I think that's important. Once again, prison guards, expenses, medical care. That's $47 million. A lot of the dollars just end in March. That's a this year problem, but it's also a next year problem as well because it builds into the base. Once again, if you artificially set a number that's lower than what you think you're going to spend, then you're going to have to do a supplemental, or you're going to have to do one-shot money. We're trying to minimize that, but no, we're left in a very, very difficult position. We will overcome those difficulties. But these are factual, so here we go. 47 million. So out of Homeland Corrections. I think the West Virginia public may know that my handwriting is not as good as other people, but I'm going to keep working my way through it. All right, PIA. $62 million. $62 million, that's to comport with the law, the 80-20 law, the contributions of the employer, the state of West Virginia, and the individuals that participate in the program. This $62 million does not address the problems, many of the issues you've been hearing about. What does that mean? That means that when there's projections of 14.4% increases, base increase to make the formula road, which they have artificially suppressed in previous years. $62 million for that alone. That's a significant dollar figure. Higher education. The formula that was passed, I believe, is going to require an extra $12 million to comply with current law. That's $12 million. The local school share money, there's been a decrease of $29 million happens. The local share reflects the property tax revenues that are collected. So there's been a decrease in property tax amounts that are paid, which a lot of citizens and people like, of course, but there are implications to the state budget. So, and then there's also going to be a bolus of dollars on Hope Scholarship. That can be significant as well. We're working to address all of these, but the education piece is a big driver of the budget. Now, I want to also talk about a couple other things. Tourism. Tourism was another area where they were doing one-shot money. So the base budget, at least compared to this, is underfunded by about $13 million. Now, to be clear, these are the back of the line and expect that future people are going to have to deal with it. You're basically pushing all the problems into a mountain of problems into the back. The public defender money is expected to run out approximately in March as well. That we're looking at about $22 million to get to what's effectively required under the law. And these are significant dollars. But there's another piece of this as well. Let's talk tax cuts. And I want to be really clear. There will be no new taxes in our budget. None. Period. I'm not looking to increase taxes. Okay? As a state, though, we have to start being honest with the people and have to understand the cost of doing things. The reason I believe we need to have tax cuts overall is we have to do things that move the needle, that help us get to this great place where we're competing with all the states that we touch, where you start to see that West Virginia income taxes are lower than the other states that we touch, that we're more competitive in a variety of areas, in education, in various areas that drive decisions of whether to move to the great state of West Virginia. So I strongly support the ongoing effort to continue to cut taxes. But, as you know, I was very clear last year, and I'm going to ask around if everyone agrees with this. When they were cutting the taxes, I said, please continue to cut taxes, but you must pay for them. The taxes have not been paid for. So, if you look at that 4% tax cut, that's approximately $96 million. If you look at the 2%, that's approximately $46 million. We're going to find a way to make that happen. We're going to tax break. But we can't just keep foisting new debt and new obligations on future generations. I care about our kids. We have to think about that. And so there's a mix, as much as we can, about the structural deficit. And we're going to leave so much goodness that you're going to be able to measure, and you're going to be able to see transparently. A couple weeks ago, I announced that we're moving to a 6-year budget plan. I want you to be able to see that. You'll be receiving that, understand these numbers, and agree with what the administration is doing. It's just not an area of dispute. I also want to be clear that every legislature, every governor, you're set with a lot of tough decisions. I appreciate it. I respect that. So we're in the going forward plan. I'm not looking backwards. I think that there are a lot of good things that people in the legislature and our previous governor have done, because we have to roll our sleeves up. We have to do it for people about where we are. And that's why I think having the 6-year budget plan is going to provide to the public what we think is happening to the future, the bills that eventually have to get paid, and the tough choices that are going to be made. I'm really clear to be more competitive with the other states that we touch. That's why I'm going to fight any efforts to increase your tax. At the same time, when those choices are made, as I said over the last year, when you followed me in the campaign, I said, when you do the tax cuts, pay for them. And I think we will start to see the growth as we get further, once you see the nature of the tax cuts, because once we're lower than some of the states we touch, that could start to drive budget. There's another item I wanted to mention to you as well. Over the last few years, there have been some changes to some of the taxes. And once again, I support the efforts to provide more tax relief to our citizens. There was one tax that was created that's creating a very significant, as many people know, there was a vote several years ago, and there were some prohibitions in terms of some of the property tax relief, things that are embedded in the Constitution that people voted on. Now it's charged the tax that policy. And there are a lot of people are looking for relief from the car tax. I think what we're seeing now is that this has been administratively very challenging, and that this is not the ideal way to deliver tax relief to people. Let me give you an example. When you're thinking about providing hard-working West Virginia families with relief, do you really want to create a whole new program, this Rube Goldberg program that I have to submit this and attest to that and do this and that and make it complicated? Or do you just want to provide tax relief to citizens, lower the amount that they pay? I prefer the latter. But right now, the tax department has 20 people working, focusing on this. They just sent a mailing out to 750,000 people. By my calculation, that's 54 cents per piece, given the rate. That's a significant amount of administrative costs in order to give money back to you. When government has to create administrative contraptions just to give back your money, something's wrong. That's to eliminate some of these bureaucracies that are not needed. I want simpler taxes. I want people to see it. I want them to pay less every day instead of having to fight through administrative bureaucracy to make that happen. So I am looking forward to working with the legislature to address that, because for people that are here, for people that we want to attract here to West Virginia. So we're going to be able to fix this problem. But I wanted to alert people, follow up with the tax department if you're having challenges, let them know. But this is as a result of the underlying law that we inherited, and I want to make sure that we're be able to administratively address it. That's the news of the day. I have time for a few questions, and I'd be happy to field them. Leah, you had your hand up first. Fire away.
Thank you, Governor. Given everything that you've laid out here, if you are approaching this budget structurally in a different way in the previous administration, will it be possible to have a flat budget this year if we're including these expenditures?
So it's a great question. So there has been no flat budget. Yes. I mean, I want to be really clear about that. You know why? Let me explain it. If you fund things, like for example, you fund a program to get it through, and you don't want to count that's crazy math, right? So we have to fix that. So what we're doing now is we're trying to fix some of the structural problems. Look, it's not going to happen overnight. The truth is that there are a lot of things that are built in, because I think there's been a lot of focus on the one-year number instead of the out-year numbers. That we are going to be working hard. That's what I'm doing every day with our cabinet secretaries to come up with solutions to these problems. We're looking forward to working with the legislature because this is a shared effort with the governor and the legislature to make this happen. So I hope that answers your question. Please.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, can you mention your name? I think that'd be great for the public to know,
yes,
and
sir.
Also for me to know. I know most of you, but thank you.
Yes, sir. Henry Colby.
Yeah, I thought it was you, Henry. Thank you.
Just a question about the budget hole. I understand that round about $400 million. You mentioned, you don't want to use rainy day or anything like that, but when the legislature passed the tax cuts in 23, they set aside $400 million. The pit tax reserve fund, is there any idea of maybe using some of that money to help?
So we're going to be looking at everything, and so I want to be clear, there is one-time money available, right? I mean, that's true, but I'm talking about fixing structural problems, right? If you have continuous programs that go on and on, at least based upon the current law, you want to start to wean yourself off from over-reliance on one-shot revenue. And let's be clear, the last number of years, a lot of the one-shot revenue came from the federal government. Federal government effectively transferred a massive amount of money. A lot of people, you get used to that money. Well, those days are coming to an end, as we know, because I think President Trump, just like the Morrisey administration, we're going to practice fiscal prudence, and I think that's what you're seeing happen. So certainly there's one-time money that's out there, and all I've done is shift the problem 3 or 4 years down the road, and I don't want to shift it to the next generation. I also want to be clear that one-time money has appropriate uses. So, for example, if there's an investment project, we want to look at that. I know that there are other things we're going to come to you about some of the spending that's happened in the past and where we are, but it may very well be that there's transportation infrastructure money or broadband infrastructure money or economic development infrastructure money where a one-time shot in the arm might help further create a base, expand the base of taxpayers and citizens living in our state. That would be good. That's how I'm thinking about one-term money. So we will have that strategic and as much as possible limit how much it's going into continuing programs. Now, I want to be clear, there's going to still be a need to rely on a lot of it because we're not going to be able to fix these deep budget problems overnight. There's structural problems, not just for this year, but they go out into the future. If you look at over $400 million in this year, it goes out over $600 million and beyond into the future. Those are things we have to address. That's why the one-time shot money doesn't work. But we're going to be tackling this. Be really clear, I'm very optimistic that everything we've talked about to be able to compete better with all the states that we touch, that's going to happen. But we're going to be honest about the process, and we're going to let people know where we stand. Please.
Hi, Governor. Erin Beck, public health reporter for North State Spotlight. In your inaugural address, you told West Virginians that your administration would take on the tough challenges, including fixing foster care. Previous governors have made similar promises. This morning shows there are still significant problems with our state's foster care system. So we'd like to know, what will you do differently and how will your administration fix this system?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to tell you that this is a really important issue because it involves families, it involves kids. And I spent a lot of time looking at this issue and also working to identify someone who I think is going to be an all-star. But he has an incredible background in this area. And one of the reasons why he's worked hard on these kids' programs. And I think he's had great expertise and good results in South Dakota. So he just started yesterday. I'm looking forward. I think I'm meeting with him in the next few hours. And we're going to be going through these issues. And I will tell you, we're going to be coming to you with specific plans. And but there's a new renewed focus on it to make sure that our families are taken care of, because we have to be compassionate with our kids and our families, and it's a high priority. So I'm meeting with our secretary today. In upcoming weeks and months ahead, we'll be rolling it out. I'm fond of saying, I think this is day 16, 15. Where are we, guys? Anyone in the back? I guess Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Day 16 of the administration. So we're going to keep coming to you with more and more solutions to the problem. But I'm trying to level with the public about where we are. We've inherited a lot of challenges. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to get a lot done. And, we're not going to be perfect about everything, but I'm going to try to come before you. I'm going to answer the tough questions. And then if we don't know the answer to the question, we'll answer it the next time we come before you.
Gil McClanahan, WC.
Yeah, hey, Gil.
Fine, how are you?
Good.
I want to ask you a few questions about the ice race that's going around the state. What's the latest information on that? How long are these raids going to be going on? Would you consider as helping the agents? And I know this is a lot.
No, it's okay.
No, thank you. And,
you should have a governor that can stand before you and answer the tough questions. You have that.
Well, that's right. And I got a long list here too. Are these people that are being rounded up, are they guilty of other crimes besides?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was talking about that right before. So yes, there are a number of them that have existing crimes which resulted them being within our regional jail or our prison system. So that's one. And then we believe the numbers changed from last night. Where we are right now is we think it's up to 58. And we think of those, virtually all, there's some other criminal component. We think 13 may be from some of the violations of immigration law. But I think we're at 58. We're going to have more announcements on that on Thursday. And I will likely come before you. We may alternate the site. We got to mix it up a little bit, and we got to get out to different parts of the state. We've been a little bit busy working hard during the day, but we're going to have more information on Thursday that might help.
Would you consider using the National Guard?
Look, I'm open. Our folks are helping right now, and we're working closely with this. So I think that if we have announcements in that area, I'd be sure to let you know when that happens.
And these are happening all over the state, right?
They are. And I will say this. I believe that what President Trump has done is absolutely correct. I've always talked about the problems of immigration and how it affects West Virginia. To be clear, our numbers may be lower than others in terms of the illegal immigrants compared to other states. But I've repeatedly, for many years, talked about the impact of having illegal immigrants and then bring deadly fentanyl into the state that's flooding in from Mexico. The original product, the raw ingredients come from China. They get packaged in Mexico. They come across and eventually make their way to West Virginia. So you're going to find a Morrisey administration very cooperative with the Trump administration. It's a big issue. It's important for West Virginia because we have to stop the senseless death. So I'm all in to help President Trump on making that happen.
Sort of related to that, Governor, I know you announced some of your remaining cabinet appointees, but I didn't hear Department of Homeland Security. Is that something that you're
Stephen, thank you for mentioning that. And I'm glad, because one of the things we intend to do is this is another candidate for consolidation. So it is my intent to consolidate the role of the TAG and Homeland Security and work through that, because there's a little bit, we think, of overlap. We think we can have appropriate consolidation. And this is how the state had operated for a long period of time. You may remember when it used to be DMAP, Military Affairs. We're looking at ways to bring that back together and ultimately to generate not just cost savings, but bring new management efficiencies to bear. I think that's very important. So thank you for raising that. I appreciate it, and that will be our goal. I intend to seek legislation with the House and the Senate to try to make that happen.
Sir, on the immigration front, just can you say anything about where these people have been being arrested at, when they've been arrested? The idea is, how serious of an issue is this here in Charleston, Huntington?
Look, I will say that when you're talking about 58 people and there are a number of people that are charged with different crimes, I take it seriously. If you tell me there's one person running around that's committed a serious crime, that could lead to catastrophic consequences for any individual. So, yeah, I think it's serious. It's not only serious because of the illegal immigration problem that we deal with here in West Virginia, but the drug problem. And I don't think across the border, and I've been focusing on that for many years as the state's Attorney General, that I'm obviously going to renew that focus here. But what I am excited about is we finally have administration in Washington that's going to tackle the tough issues and work on them. So I think this is a breath of fresh air from President Trump, and I'm going to cooperate with him as much as I can.
But any indication of the number that's been here locally?
Well, I don't, Curtis, I don't have the breakdown per county. I've given you it was 53 as of last night. It's 58 overall. You know, as we get more information, we're happy to share it. I just don't have all that in front of me. Katie?
So we're looking, Katie Boyd, West Virginia, where you're talking about the budget. I think this is a big immediate thing that we should talk about.
Immediate what?
A big immediate thing that we should talk about.
Big media thing?
Immediate.
Oh, immediate. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're okay. 5 p.m., President Trump has set a deadline for a halt on federal loans and grants. We get more than 40% of our revenue every year from loans and grants. How are we preparing for that? What are we going to do? And what should people be doing if they rely on that for rental assistance? Well,
I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to unpack that and talk with the Trump administration about that. I read about some of that this morning, and we're going to learn, and we're going to consult with them. I think President Trump is going to be an amazing president. I'm excited to work with him across the board, and we're going to have the chance to have my team and I look through that, and then we'll come back and answer those questions. But look, I do think what President Trump is trying to do generally is correct. The federal government, and quite frankly, the state government, has operated way beyond its means, right? So you have finally leadership in Washington. You have leadership here in Charleston. I'm going to work just like President Trump to tackle the issues and be transparent. I think one thing I really like about President Trump, and I like a lot of things, he's willing to come before the people and take questions and from a lot of folks. I think that's great. So I support President Trump's willingness to do that. And I'm starting to get calls, but when I have more information, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. But we're going to try to unpack it, see what the impact is, and see the difference between what he may do via executive order or his own authority with the freezes versus what he may want to put into a reconciliation package, because that's obviously very different, because he may be setting his number out, but then he has to work with his legislature, the U.S. Congress, just like we have to work with our legislature. So I'll be looking to get into those details and happy to talk more about that in the future.
Do you know anything right now about what that means as of 5 p.m. or as of tomorrow morning?
No, we don't have a projection on that. But Katie, you're right that close to 50% of the West Virginia aggregate spending budget is through federal, and IGT's transfers of some sort. If I remember the number right, I got McCown here. Is it about $19.9 billion overall? And we're looking at close to half of that through the state-based sources. So, obviously, we will look closely at that. There's a lot of details associated with it, and we just kind of make it up as I go along. I want to provide you with facts and information, and then, at least the public will have access to that.
Ma'am? I have a related question.
Ma'am, hang on. She's first.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, and your name?
Yes, Rachel Pellegrino, WOWK.
Great, Rachel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to hear your team's response on the ongoing issues in Mingo County with residents there, 1,000 residents struggling to get clean access to water that's reliable. First perspective, I was down there yesterday talking with residents, and they had brought up not only a health issue, with some saying they've got diarrhea, even rashes from the water, and others just talking about it just being unreliable and the quality's not good, especially with firefighters being concerned about not having reliable access, because what happens when, they're trying to use a fire hydrant and the water's not reliable and they can't even get to a stream to access water.
Look, everyone should have access to clean water, and certainly we want to work with the folks in Mingo to try to make that happen. One thing I will tell you on a related note is that we just recently received a call just over the last day or two related to Weirton, because apparently there are 500 families that have had challenges with water, but we were just literally notified. So with a water truck and something that allows there to be water to be effectively cleaned so it could be usable, potable water, and then sent up folks on the houses that are emerged. A lot of the Mingo problems have been around a long time. So we certainly want to work with them, and I invite the citizens of Mingo County and their leadership to, better brief us on a lot of these issues.
I think you can. Am I able to
go ahead. Sure.
So I know you mentioned obviously inherited problems with Mingo County. The problem with the PSD. I know that they're being investigated right now because it's a problem that's built up over the years that have caused this unreliable water in that county. I mean, is there anything your administration is physically doing right now? And what do you want to say to especially those residents?
Well, here's what I want to say is that our administration is going to be looking to fix a lot of the structural problems that have just been put off, and everything's been put off into the future, right? We're looking to address as many issues as we can. What I would say to people is we've inherited a lot of issues. We're going to work diligently to try to fix a lot of them, and obviously clean water has to be very, very high on the list, right? So we'll certainly look at that as we go forward, because we want people to have those basic necessities, and I know our team is focused on that. Jen, yeah, please, absolutely. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You haven't asked a question yet. I want to give you an opportunity.
Yeah, Keelan Bailey, West Virginia Public Broadcasting. Just a quick point of clarification. You mentioned there will be no new taxes. Were you specifically referring to the state personal income tax, or you're not looking to increase any tax?
I'm saying that West Virginia's tax burden is high enough, and I am committed to trying to continue a pathway to have West Virginia's income tax eventually be lower than all the states that we touch. That's going to take a lot of work. It's not going to happen overnight, but I'm not looking for tax increases to solve these problems. We need structural changes. This has happened over a period of time where the structural problems and a lot of issues have been pushed off into the future. I'm trying to wrestle with them, but it's going to require continuing to meet with our team and to analyze different areas for efficiency and get the baseline budget back in a responsible manner. So
you're referring specifically to the state personal income tax?
Work pretty hard for their money, and I think we want to make sure that we protect them. That's who we work for, and I take that very, very seriously. So you're not going to see me be proposing these multi-billion-dollar tax increases like you've seen in the past. Other questions? Aaron, go ahead, and we'll go back.
Okay, so this is related to child welfare, and I know you said that you would have more information coming out in coming weeks, but just based on some of your prior comments, I do think you should be able to address it somewhat. And it's related to what we were just talking about. So you have promised to make more tax cuts for West Virginians and said that is going to repurpose and right-size the state government. So how will you improve, how will you look after our most vulnerable kids, meaning kids involved in the child welfare system, without spending more money to address?
So one of the things that I want to make sure all West Virginians know is that I mentioned before the era of big spending is over. We have to be more creative. We have to be more diligent in trying to make dollars stretch a little bit longer, to be more efficient, to have more accountability. You know, I've talked on the campaign trail of different investments in technology so we can get more efficient. I think we can get there because, look, West Virginians pay enough taxes. I think the goal is going to be how do we get our arms around state government and to be able to know what the priorities are as well. We're going to hear from the public about what's occurring. But I think a good, solid review is going to help. I've talked a lot about auditing. I've talked about reviewing. You know, we're going to have some announcements coming out on that. I will tell you that we're spending a lot of time right now on the budget that we probably didn't fully anticipate, but we're working hard. These are good things that we do to get our arms around problems. And then we're going to lay out in our budget the spending priorities for the citizens of the state. And so that comes in, 15 days, I believe. I'm doing the math in my head. Right? Does that sound right, guys? 15 days. So you're going to be getting a lot of information then, and this resource, and we'll do everything we can to protect them. By the way, we're going to get better charts in the future, so I'm going to tell you that. Like, everything's good, but maybe we'll think about how we get that done. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Just one additional question.
Yeah.
I know we've talked a lot today about the expenditure side of the budget. When you're kind of looking at these expenditures on the revenue side, are y'all kind of going with the idea of about the same as this past year, or a little bit lower?
I mean, I think reasonably consistent. So, but I mentioned the specifics of the 4% and the 2%. Once again, I want to say very clearly, everyone, I support tax cuts. I just think they have to get paid for, and the last two did not. Now, you could argue, well, there's money set aside for Pitt. But if you have $142 million, think about how many years it takes to go through that. Well, by my math, 400 divided by 3, 142 times 3 is 426, right? So, I mean, it could be evaporated really quickly. So that's the issue. You have to build in the savings and plan for the future. This isn't just 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. That's one of the reasons why I reinstituted the 6-year plan. I want people to have transparency, to be able to see what's going on, so you get to see what I'm seeing. And, I'm thinking about how can I bring you in so you get to have access in a way you never had before to look at these numbers. I think that's important for the public to know. But I've inherited these challenges, but I intend to fix them. And West Virginia should know that we're going to work really, really hard in a way that you've never seen before. We're the worker bees. We're going to get all this done. And that and the changing of the economic statistics is what's going to lead to the growth and so many wonderful things for our state. So I'm optimistic about that. We are going to be that shining state in the mountains. Occasionally there's a cloudy day. And what we want to do is say, look, the sun is going to come out because you have people working on this who are in it for the West Virginia people for the long term. We're going to make good, sound decisions, and I'm excited about the future.
What conversation have you had with the legislature with regards to this deficit? The reason I ask is because when you first talked about a $400 million deficit, I talked to the House Finance Chairman, and he said news of an upcoming deficit was kind of news to him.
Yeah.
Just one.
So we've been obviously having some discussions with the leadership in the House and the Senate, and there may be individual legislators who, I think focus on the 1-year piece. And obviously, as we've said before, there were projections. At least as of today, I'm not here to announce that there's a deficit for the end of the year. But keep in mind, I just mentioned $47 million for this year. I'm pointing this out to people, and we're in that education process. So certainly we're having conversations ongoing with the Speaker and the Senate President. And once again, as we're getting information, we're trying to share that with you. So I think we're going to have a lot of opportunity to work with the committees of jurisdiction, the House Finance, the Senate Finance, and everyone on this. And I want to make sure that I can answer any question that comes out. What other questions do you guys have? Have I actually left you without questions? This is unbelievable.
Ask questions.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I know there's a lot of information that we've presented to you today. To recap, unbelievable appointments. This is actually the story of the day. All-star team. I mean, we really have a wonderful group of people coming in. Number 2, more consolidations. And this is the 3rd that we've announced, and there may be more coming. Remember, to bring these efficiencies, we're going to have to make some tough choices. That's what we're working on. Number 3, we talked about transparency in the budget. I'm trying to answer the questions that you are giving me and giving the information we have. We're meeting with all the different departments. I'm going to continue that process. I have a number of additional meetings today and tomorrow and the next few days, and we're going to get to the bottom of all these issues. I mentioned some of the challenges of the car tax, the administrative issues associated with the law that was passed, but I'm committed to working with the legislature to be able to get more tax relief for citizens. And to fix things that really shouldn't be written that way, right? You don't want to create a new bureaucracy for hardworking men and women of our state. Today, I want to thank you all for coming. I believe, don't take this as a gospel, but on Thursday, I think we're likely to do something, but it may not be here. It may be here or it may be at another site, because I want to make sure that all parts of West Virginia know all the things that we're doing. And appreciate you coming in. Yeah, Katie, one final question.
Guidance for the federal grant stuff. I'm sorry, I keep going
I'm
back.
sorry, what?
Guidance on the federal grant freeze. Where should we look for that once we have information? Like benefits for food, for child care.
Look, as we learn more about it, we'll let you know. I mean, I think this is a moving target. And so as I learn more, I'm happy to try to share that with you. I think that the federal government last night sent some information out this morning. So as our team gets that, I think also our federal representatives may have immediate access to some of that, but we'll get there too.